the Agorist Next podcast. I'm Brandon. I've got my great co-host Dag with me. How you doing, Dag?
Excellent, dude. How's it going?
Hey, good, man. Probably not as good as you, though. That's hard to do. So.
Oh, stop.
I've got a really exciting guest. We've always got an exciting guest. I've really been looking forward to this one. We've got Kat with Homestead Guru and I don't know, a bunch of other stuff that she's involved in, everything from Anarcho-Poco to I think even like Freedom Fest. But how you doing, Catherine?
Hi, I am wonderful. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I guess my first question for you is, well, I guess it'd be easier to ask you what you don't do because I think you pretty much do about everything.
Well, I don't status.
Right,
How about
that? That's a good start.
Yeah, I don't state. But yeah, generally I'm into all things health and wellness and decentralization, self-ownership, agorism, cryptocurrency, silver butter, growing food, raising sovereign children, getting off the grid, living your life to its fullest, yoga, meditation, and writing. I also like photography and hiking, and I just got into paddleboarding.
Yeah, nice. So tell us about the Homestead Guru.
Sure, the Homestead Guru is a really fun project that myself and some of my dear friends are working on. I used to run this as a solo blog project, and I found it grew way too big for me to handle on my own. I'm not a very good business person. I'm an excellent content creator, and I really enjoy creating educational media, whether it's touring a homestead or writing a blog post about a community I visited, or just Instagramming photos of my wild foraging adventures out in the world. And this project just grew too big for me to manage on my own. The email list is gigantic, the following online is big, and I brought on 3 of my really good friends, all women, who happen to be walking the walk. These are friends of mine who don't just talk the talk, but they really, really get it on a fundamental level. Lily, Elizabeth, and Angel. And these women really fill in the gaps where I'm not so successful and a little dyslexic. So Angel is our editor, and she makes sure that things aren't published with typos, which if you go back and you look at some of our blog posts from 5.5 years ago, there's like 20 typos in everything I published. Lily has just become, she came on as a content creator maybe 4 years ago and has really become the backbone of the Homestead Guru. She helps me with all of the technical stuff that overwhelms me and just makes me feel like I'm drowning. And Elizabeth is our creative artista. She manages the Pinterest and the Instagram. And essentially, we have a collection of almost 700 articles on our website, and they are all designed to help empower you to be your own guru. The idea is not that Catherine's the guru or Lily's the guru, it's that we are all our own guru. And when you really start working toward autonomy and just taking ownership of your own life and decentralizing all these different aspects, you get to create this really, really beautiful masterpiece. I actually earlier today was on Adam vs. the Man with Adam Kokesh, and he described homesteading like painting a piece of art. You know, you get to decide what it looks like. Do you live in an RV or do you live on a big ranch? Do you garden or do you shop at the farmer's market? Do you make your own medicine or do you buy natural medicines? Like, you can create whatever lifestyle you want, and essentially you become your unique homestead, and it looks different for every single person. And so we are trying to help people figure out how to homeschool if they want to, or unschool if they want to take it that far, and how to get out of the centralized medical industrial complex. And that can be taking natural remedies buying them from a company like doTERRA essential oils, or it could be learning how to wild forage and going out in the forest behind your house and cultivating plants that can be utilized to alleviate certain symptoms that you're experiencing. So it really is a fun project, and I've been working on it for 5.5 years now. I just love it. I think it's really fun. It's been a creative outlet for me. And I think right now with coronavirus and the way things are moving globally, now is the time for the Homestead Guru to really make an influence on and with and for our movement of decentralization.
Yeah, that's
That's
awesome.
excellent.
I really want a seastead myself, but go ahead, Dag.
Seasteading seems fun, but it's a little intense for sure. I really like where you're talking about I cannot pronounce this, autonomy. It's really one of the things when you start doing homesteading, activities is, you really have to learn how to learn, and there's a lot of really great resources out there. But step-by-step guides are nice, but because everybody's situation is different, like you were saying, where you get to create your own world basically. You really have to learn how to learn to deal with individual hurdles that you're gonna have. Like, you'll start off in the morning like just doing whatever chore. I'm gonna do a little bit of mowing, and then your mower doesn't work, and by the end of the day you're sitting there knee deep in Briggs and Stratton repair manuals, redoing rocker arms on the just stuff you've never done before, and you're just learning all these skills just because you have to. And I really love that. It's one of my favorite things about it, and it's really cool to have good resources available. Like, you guys have tons of articles about all that, so that's really great.
Yeah, and it's not just learning how to learn the practical skills, but it's also building the community. Maybe you can't figure out how to fix that lawnmower. Do you have a neighbor whose door you can go knock on? Do you have that community built? If you built those relationships, it's so important. And right now, with everybody turning to the internet, we sometimes forget about that human to human relationship. And I think one of the beautiful things about the Homestead Guru project is that we are documenting so many different ways of homesteading, of getting off the grid, of living these alternative lives, that you actually can sort of explore the different things without having to try them up front. I have visited multiple communities, and I do in-depth interviews with people, taking videos of the property, checking out community gardens. They're all run differently. Some communities are nonprofit, some are for-profit, some are land trusts. Some community gardens are in a city, some are out in the middle of the woods. Some people, they run a big cattle operation, and some people are vegans and gardening plants only. So being able to really look through and see what people are doing, find recipes that people have tried. We've got carnivore recipes, we've got vegan recipes. We are not dogmatic, and we really believe in experiencing the full spectrum of life. So we don't pick a certain angle to come from and stick to that. We're really open to all different types, whether it's tiny house living or using solar panels or building earth ships or being more mobile. I think there's something to mobility as well, especially in these times where we don't know which governments are going to make what choices. Do we have the ability to dig roots, and do we have the ability to go? So just knowing where these communities exist and where you can tap into and learn from each other. And what I love about the Homestead Guru is that I'm learning every single day through this project, and it's my project. I don't claim to be the expert. I don't claim to be, teaching people anything other than showing the world what I'm learning as I learn it. So yes, I have learned how to learn in a really big way, and I'm surrounded by people who are learning how to learn, and we're just sharing what we learn with the world.
Yeah, that's great. And after 5 years, I mean, I'm sure you've I don't know if you want to call yourself an expert, but I mean, after 5 years, you definitely, you know somewhat of what you're doing, right?
Yeah, and 5 years is only how long we've been doing the blog. And I've been living in the converted school bus, but I've been gardening and raising chickens and other things for a lot longer than that. But I don't know if it's, what is that word? Oh, I'm grasping. I can't think of the word, but um, where you don't realize how much you know, if that makes sense. But I do feel like I'm a perpetual student. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's great. That's kind of ended my last show with a quote that said, you know, empty your cup. So, it was like a Bruce Lee quote. And but anyways, it's pretty much the same thing. You know, it's like always be willing to learn, never think you know everything, and I think that's a great attitude to have. I wanted to kind of when you had said gardening, it kind of triggered a thought that went through my head. I'd seen a video of you in Italy, and it was such a great video. Um, you had like this like passion, and I thought it was great. You were in Italy, and you were like telling us how like everybody had a garden, and you were so surprised, and you had this like spark in your eye, and I thought that was really awesome. Tell us about that if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad you brought that up because I just found about 8 videos from Italy that were sitting on YouTube, already uploaded, and were listed as private. And I have not written blog posts about them or anything, but I did just make them public about a week ago. So for people listening to your podcast, you can go get a sneak peek at those on the Homestead Guru YouTube channel. I will be incorporating those into blog posts and sending them out as emails in the coming weeks. But my husband is Italian. He was born and raised in northern Italy, and he brought me out there to show me how he was raised. I was blown away. Not only does literally every single family in his village have their own garden, but he actually went to an agricultural middle school and high school. So this school, and these are the videos that I just made public. I mean, I made these videos 2 years ago, uploaded them, got busy, forgot to make them, viewable to everyone. So it's kind of like a rediscovered, like special hidden treasure. This school, they teach the children how to raise food. So they have an apple orchard, they have a kiwi grove, they've got olives, they have peaches and nectarines and some fruits that I don't even know the names of. They've got vegetables growing, they have cattle. And not only do they have cattle, but they have a cornfield where they actually make the bedding for the cattle stalls from the corn, and they make their own feed for the cattle. They raise it, and they've got a machine that mills it and grinds it, and they make the feed for the cattle. They have this giant compost pile. They were saying that the land initially was just void of nutrients, and through this very intensive composting program that they put together, they now have extremely fertile land. And so they go through this whole process of raising the food, making their own bedding, composting, enriching the soil, and then they actually eat the cattle in the cafeteria, and then the families can buy the meat as well. So it sort of functions like a farmer's cooperative within the community there. So these children are being raised through middle school and high school literally with their hands in the dirt, and they are learning how to cultivate chickens and breed them for egg, breed them for meat, and they've got all cycles, every aspect of the life cycle from egg to adult chicken there on the property. So I got to do this really neat tour where my husband interviewed one of the teachers in Italian, and then I do summaries in English. So the videos that just recently became public on YouTube are my English summary. And one of these days we'll do something with the Italian one. I wanted to like translate it and, you know, put the English subtitle on it because it's way more in depth. And, you know, I have a 5-minute summary of the chicken operation and they have a 45-minute interview about it. And I have a 5-minute summary of the fruit orchard and they've got a 45-minute video about it. So slowly over time, we'll be releasing more and more, but I fell in love with Northern Italy. This area was fantastic. They're growing food and they're storing food. You walk into people's homes and they have these root cellars where they have braided garlic and braided onions hanging from the ceiling, and they make their own wine, and they've got canned mushrooms and canned vegetables. And for example, Paolo's father goes hiking in the mountains and harvests mushrooms every single week, you know, and he cooks them into his meals. And when he has an abundant harvest, they can them so that they have food to eat through the winter. They did not lose this way of living in Northern Italy. And I feel like this is a new old way here in the United States, right? It's a way that probably our ancestors lived. We lost track of it. And now it's like, oh, wow, we can really do this ourselves. They never lost that there in Northern Italy. It's still in practice. And I'm just so impressed. I'm very excited to live there in the future when my children are older and I can go overseas without, you know, worrying about having younger children. I think it's going to be really neat because they have never let go of these beautiful practices.
I'm always really amazed at like, and I've never been to Europe, so you know I'm just going off of stories people like you were telling me. You know, places like Italy or France or whatever, and they still have these really small like, you know, agrarian like communities. And you know, I just look like the landmass size of these countries, and you know they're smaller than a lot of states. And it's just amazing to me that they're not just overrun with like cities and, you know, whatever. And a lot of these places have been through a lot of wars, and they still hold on to that kind of stuff, and they still manage to have these, you know, make the artisanal products and you know, the wines and the different meats that just have different names depending on what village they come from, you know, and these traditions just sort of hold on. And I always found that really amazing.
It's incredible. I mean, they really do. Each of these little villages, and they're very small, like 1,000 people, and they each have their own specialties. He took me to one village over Pinglieri, and their specialty was mint essential oil from the peppermint plant. And I got to visit, they had a farmers cooperative, it was a processing facility where they do the essential oils and the dried herbs, and it's like mint, passion flower, and hops. And that's it. That's what they do. That's what they specialize in that area. And then there's another village that's a little south of where he is called Bra, B-R-A, and they have this cheese festival every year where all of these amazing cheeses come in from France and Switzerland and Italy, and it's like the Bra Cheese Festival. It's actually every other year. And so each of these areas, not only do they have like a specialty in terms of what type of agriculture they do, but they seem to have their own pastries even, you know, like this type of biscuit is made in this area. It's like they have this really, really rich history, and it blows my mind. And it's not just the traditions, but the buildings are still standing. They have an emphasis on quality. They create things that last hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and you can just feel the history of humanity when you walk down the streets. These cobblestone streets, they still exist.
Is it just like a vast like cultural difference, you think, between like there in the U.S. or that this happens, or like why do you think that is? Like, what do you see as like different? Like do these people live in the same town like their whole lives? You know, and they just stay there. They don't even like venture like town to town or anything, or intermarry, or what's that like?
Well, after meeting Paolo's friends from high school, I will say they venture around, but they do tend to, it seems, kind of stay in the general area, depending on what their specialty is. For example, my husband is a car designer, and so he's worked all over Europe. You know, he's worked in Sweden and France and Turkey and Italy, and so his career has sort of taken him around. but he always goes home, and he's maintained. What I love about their culture is that multiple generations live in the same property. So he still has an apartment at his home with his parents, and he's got his own kitchen and his own bathroom and his own room and his own door, right? But his parents are upstairs and he's on the bottom floor. And so no matter where he went to work in Europe, he always had home to come home to. And I think that that is something that is completely different from our culture here in the United States. It's like, you're 18, get out, go be on your own. And, you know, there were a couple times where I thought, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to move home? How embarrassing, how humiliating. I wouldn't be able to face my friends if they knew that I was living with my parents. And now that I'm an adult and I'm in my late 30s, and I'm looking at that and I'm like, wow, wouldn't that have been amazing to have that level of security and stability and to be that close to my family unit? So there's definitely a cultural difference how we manage families here in the United States. And I think when everybody has to get kicked out of the nest and has to go out on their own, it makes sense that we would end up with houses that are more temporary, because we have to build a new house for every single family, you know, each generation, and it spreads out and spreads out. Whereas it seems in Europe, they tend to stick together in some way. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah, just different family styles. I like the idea of having a big family all living together in one spot. You know, I think not only does it like financially make sense, but you know, especially raising kids and everything, I think it's a better environment. You know, they get to be raised by family members and you know, just close to them.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And it really helps to avoid the problem of the state raising your children because they're at home. I mean, right here in the United States, it's like grandparents get sent to old folks' homes and children get sent to school, and parents are sitting in a cubicle and nobody's together. And the the parent that's in the cubicle is kind of financing a lot of it. And what if everyone could come together? I think that grandparents are really happy around their grandchildren. And wouldn't it be nice to have that built-in caregiving for one another? I long for that. My heart longs for that. I really wish I had been raised in a culture where that was possible. And that is something that I want to incorporate into my family unit moving forward. You know, I thankfully married someone who was raised in this way. So it's going to be easy for me to integrate this way of living into my life and for my children. You know, he's not going to be concerned about an adult child coming to stay with us if they need to or want to, or our grandchildren being near us, because this is how he was raised. It's not weird or seen as taboo.
right. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I think when you're forced to leave, it's like you have to try to figure everything out so quickly around, you know, around that age of 18. And I think that if I personally got to, you know, if I personally wasn't, had pressure on me to leave, I think that I would have figured things out a little easier, instead of just trying to juggle, you know, going from living with parents to, you know, now I've got to, you know, figure out how to pay bills and find an apartment and, you know, all this stuff. And yeah, I just think that's great. If you don't mind, I wanted to switch gears to this like homestead bus you were talking about. Now you I think you'd called it like the Bitcoin bus. Is that right?
Yep, it's the Bitcoin bus.
Cool. Yeah, tell us about the Bitcoin bus.
So the Bitcoin bus actually used to be called the Unschool bus, and it belonged to the Halladorson family in New Hampshire. They lived in it for 3 years, traveling the United States, teaching people about unschooling and decentralizing academics. And my ex-husband and I, John, we were traveling the country in our minivan, teaching people about Bitcoin. And we were going to Bitcoin meetups. We were really testing the Bitcoin infrastructure back in 2014. And when the Halladorson family decided they wanted to give their bus away, they chose us. They decided to give us this school bus because they felt we were already doing the mobile advocacy. So we went out in April of 2015 and we picked up the converted school bus. And on our way home from New Hampshire back down to Texas, we had Bitcoin meetups scheduled along our route on the way home. And we did a couple other tours in it, out to Jackalope Freedom Festival on the West Coast. We did California, we did Las Vegas. In fact, we were talking about Vegas. I don't know if it was before we started recording or not, but interesting story. Our bus went on a tour called the Dash Across America tour. And this was in 2016 when altcoins were incredibly controversial. And we were banned from the Las Vegas Bitcoin meetup and our home meetup group, Austin Bitcoin meetup, because we were advocating for Dash and Ethereum in addition to Bitcoin. So we were just cutting edge at this time, just pushing the envelope, really trying to open people's minds and to remain undogmatic, you know. And when you are so obsessed with one coin, this is when centralization begins. And this is basically the foundation, the breeding ground for corruption is any sort of centralization. And that can happen even within an alternative currency. So we really felt it was important to continue to decentralize and to continue to expand. And so we were pushing the envelope pretty hard back then. And we were advocating for Dash and Ethereum and Bitcoin. And at some point in time, it became exhausting, quite frankly, to be on tour with small kids all the time. And so we sort of shifted gears a little bit and really started getting into this homesteading and digging deeper roots and doing more of a slow travel. So the Bitcoin bus is my full-time home. And as opposed to traveling nonstop, I mean, when you have the Bitcoin bus logo on your house and you have a bunch of Bitcoin wallet logos running down the side of your house and you're traveling all the time, you can't go to a gas station without people flagging you down, wanting to talk to you, wanting to see the inside. So it's like our lives were on public display 24/7, and that just, it's not sustainable. So we really moved to more of a slow travel kind of lifestyle. And it started with 3 months at a homeschool friend's property. And then it was 9 months at another homeschool friend's property. And then it was 1 year on an unschool community property. And then it was 2.5 years on another like-minded family's property. So my movement in the Bitcoin bus has really slowed down a lot. But we just arrived at an intentional community here outside of Austin, Texas, and we're testing it out. You know, there's a trial when you start looking into moving on to an intentional community. And I think trials are really important. It's good to know how people do conflict. Can you get along long term? But this is something that we are interested in really settling down and starting to dig some roots so that we're not constantly on the go. Now, we did spend a lot of time in Mexico over the past several years, and we decided to leave the bus in the United States. And part of that was simply because I had a little bit of fear of traveling across the border with a bus that said Bitcoin all over it. You know, I didn't know if it would make us a target for, you know, any sort of robberies or whatever. But once I got down there, I realized how amazing Mexico is, and that fear may have been unfounded. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, we did leave the bus here while we were going across the border, and it's been a really fun place to raise children. My kids are almost 9 and 7, and they have lived in the converted school bus since they were 2 and 3. So they don't really remember living anywhere else. and their front yard has been beaches or rivers or sheep farms or the forest or friends' houses. And it's just been a really, really neat experience living in the Bitcoin bus.
It definitely sounds like a great way to grow up. Um, could you maybe give like a quick definition of what you mean by intentional community?
Yes. An intentional community is a group of people coming together to live and function for a common purpose. Each intentional community is going to look different. Some of them might be agricultural, some of them might be philosophical. The one that we are at right now, they are all about running a community school for the children and the adults as well. It's life learning. The adults are considered students as well. And I was introduced to this particular intentional community through an event that I have attended 7 times called Rethinking Everything. And this is a gathering of families who believe in life learning, unschooling, thinking outside the box. And they get together every year. It's changed from Texas to Arkansas to Alabama to Florida. So it's kind of moved around where it's been held. But this event has taken place for 23 years, and there are 3 generations of families showing up every single year. You've got grandparents, parents, and children, all who have either raised their children or been raised as an unschooler. So it's a really neat community, and I had 3 parents from the Rethinking Everything community say, hey, I think you would really like this intentional community. So I reached out, and now we're here. And so far, it's been really, really neat.
Tell us about Mexico, if you could.
Oh, yes. So I started going to Mexico in 2018 for Anarchapulco. I had been invited to speak several times, and my ex told me no. So I didn't go. And finally, the 2018 event, I said, look, I just feel like if I don't say yes, I'm never going to be invited again. So I want to go. I want to take the kids. And I ended up saying yes, like, oh my gosh, 4 months after they invited me. And they were like, oh no, we've already filled your spot. We thought you were going to be a no. But we've got this new stage that we're launching this year called the Health and Wellness Stage. And I spoke on the Health and Wellness stage about raising sovereign families and unschooling. And I fell so in love with the event. We stayed for 6 weeks at that time, and the community of Acapulco itself, that I wanted to be as involved as possible for 2019. So in 2019, I began to manage the Health and Wellness stage, and I did again this year in 2020. And we spent many months living down there in Mexico. We spent 6 months over the 2018-2019 winter, and honestly, it was the best 6 months of my life. I really dove deep into my yogic practice there. I spent a lot of time at this facility called Bambuda Holistic Center, and it's run by this amazing woman named Vistara. She is from Spain originally, and she moved to Acapulco. She was one of the first women pilots in Mexico and the first one flying small planes. And you can actually see her in like 1980s rock and roll music videos in Mexico flying this little plane, when they needed a plane to fly something. Really, really neat. She studied in India for 3 years, and I spent 4 days a week doing Ashtanga yoga with her on the beach, and my life completely changed. I began to heal pieces of myself that I did not know were broken. So Mexico had a profound effect on me. I changed from the inside out during my time in Mexico. And I decided, because of my experience living in Mexico, that I wanted to become a yoga teacher. And I'm happy to say that I got certified this year at the 200-hour level to be a yoga teacher. And I'm working on my 300-hour training right now. And in November, I will have my 500-hour certification as a yoga teacher. And that means that, if I decide I want to teach other yoga teachers, I can do that. And it's just a very deep learning I feel like this is something that our movement really needs. The definition of yoga, the Sanskrit word yoga, it means union. And this is union with yourself, union with your soul, union with your community, union with all beings, union with the source, right? And as we get to know ourselves through asana or movement and pranayama or breath, we really get to find this state of union, and we move out of this state of conflict. And I believe, being born of the Ron Paul movement, I was full of conflict in my activism, and I was surrounded by activists who were full of conflict. And a lot of the attendees at events like Anarchapulco still carry that energy of conflict. And so for me, diving into my yogic practice has allowed me to create union within myself. And I have really started to let go of the internal conflicts that had been taking place that were then being projected out into external conflicts. And my life has changed dramatically because I don't have that perpetual state of conflict. There's no us and them. It's all of us. We are one. We are the same.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. And so it sounds like you're not only doing yoga, but it's like, it seems like some kind of meditation too. Is that right? Forgive my ignorance.
Oh, so what you're thinking of with yoga is probably the movement or the asana, and that is one of 8 pieces of yoga. Yoga is also meditation, it is also breath work, it is also concentration. There's all these different aspects of yoga. And I have found that my introduction to yoga was the physical movement. And then I just started following down the yogic path and introducing all of these different modalities. So yoga is a way of being in this world, and the physical postures and shapes that you make with your body, it's a way to get to know yourself better and to really find your edges and to push past your limits. My teacher in Mexico would say, flexible body, flexible mind, strong body, strong mind. And I found this to be so true, that as I became more strong and as I began to be able to put my body into these different shapes that I never knew was possible to do, I found that my mind was becoming more flexible. My heart was becoming more flexible. And likewise, I was becoming more strong. I was becoming more resilient. I could face the things that used to trigger me and upset me and get me into, I would say, an altered state, but I don't mean that in the, like drug-induced way, but the emotional way, right? The anger, the aggravation, the irritation, the hysteria, the crying, whatever it may be. Those triggers are not as easily triggered as they once were. It takes a lot to move me in that direction now. And that wasn't really my intention when I got into yoga. And I've just had this great unfolding as I have learned more about it. And there's a lot of science behind things like meditation and breath work. And in fact, you can actually induce a psychedelic experience through yogic practice. And this is something that began to happen for me after I went to Peru in 2017. I did ayahuasca. I had never done psychedelics before, ever. And so my first experience was ayahuasca, and it just blew my world wide open. And I found that through breath work and meditation, after practicing yoga, I could sit and have the visuals that I had on ayahuasca. Like, I could induce a psychedelic like experience simply through sitting still and doing these breathwork practices. So there's a lot of layers to yoga, and the physical postures, they're just one of them, and they're an important part of it, but they're not the only part.
Yeah, thanks for
Wow,
answering that.
that's really awesome. I guess I just sort of assumed that it's, it was, oh yeah, it helps with your flexibility and, maybe
Yeah.
relaxes you a little bit, but I didn't realize there was, so much to it. If somebody wanted to learn more about it, how would you recommend they go about doing that? Do you have a book you recommend, or do you do like an online class or anything?
Well, I have been doing online classes. I've been doing Monday morning yoga. Um, but here's what I would say. Find somebody who's interesting to you to learn more from. We are each called to a different teacher for a different reason. And if you're called to work with me, reach out and we'll figure something out. But there's going to be yoga teachers anywhere you go. There are so many different styles of yoga. Ashtanga, what I mentioned to you earlier that I was practicing in Mexico, this is a very athletic form of asana practice. And you are learning the same sequence every single class. And the idea is that your body memorizes this sequence of movements so that you can get into a meditative state while you are moving. And every single shape that you put your body in, it's with a breath. So you're moving into this shape on an inhale. You're moving into that shape on an exhale. You're moving into this shape in an inhale. And so you meet up with the rhythm of the breath. There's other styles like hatha yoga, which is a very traditional form of yoga. And this is one where you hold the postures for multiple breaths. And this is going to be more strength building in your body. And there's yin yoga, where you literally sit in one posture for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And for me in yin yoga, I feel like I gain an inch of distance in my ligaments by the end of class because you're allowing your body to just expand in these ways. So if you want to learn about yoga, just start practicing. Show up to classes, get on YouTube. You're going to find that different styles of yoga vibe with you at different times in your life or different times of the day, right? So I really enjoy Ashtanga yoga and I really enjoy Hatha yoga. They're very different practices, and depending on what I'm going through will depend on whether I practice them or not. I tend to feel more athletic in the spring and the fall, and so Ashtanga is going to be more my vibe then, whereas in the summer it's hot outside and I like Hatha that's a little bit more slow moving and less cardiovascular. So experiment, play around, try different forms of yoga. There's Kundalini yoga where you are basically seated and raising your arms in different positions and doing breathing exercises. So, each of these are going to have a different effect on you, and you may absolutely not like a certain style of yoga. That's okay. Go try another one because you may find that this other one is the one that changes your life.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I should get into yoga. um. So. Um. I wanted to ask you earlier. Not to get sidetracked or anything, but I've noticed that a lot of Americans are leaving the States for many different countries, especially Latin American. Can you give us any advice on living in Mexico, or you even mentioned I think Panama earlier?
My advice is to go visit. Go see if you like it. It is a very different culture. I think in Mexico, I definitely experienced white privilege in the fullest extent of the word, like dictionary definition of privilege. People look at you, they see that you are not from here, and they treat you differently. And so that has mixed blessings, right? Sometimes it's not fun standing out like a sore thumb, and sometimes it's nice feeling like the red carpet's being rolled out for you. But you can sometimes, in some environments, feel like maybe you're being exploited. Like when you go to the market, people might try to raise prices on you because you don't speak their language or whatever. But in general, I have found that the culture in Mexico is amazing. It's gentle. The way they treat their children is awesome. I thought that Mexicans were violent against children because the family of my ex, half of them come from Mexico, and they were so violent towards children. And so I had this idea that Mexicans were going to be whooping children, and that is not the case. I found that when I saw a 2-year-old having a tantrum, the parents would laugh and sit down, and there wasn't all of this pressure to get places and go places. The schedule is much more relaxed and easygoing. You know, businesses are not always open when they say they will be open. And so just learning to be flexible and to accommodate, at least for me, I feel like the United States has a very go, 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 go kind of feel. And so if you're looking for something that's more slow paced with less pressure, they also live with multiple generations in one household, sort of like we were talking about in Italy. So it's a very different cultural experience, and I absolutely loved it. I found in Mexico, I had a little bit more difficulty understanding the Spanish, whereas in Peru, I felt the Spanish was a slower pace. So, you know, going and visiting these places and seeing where you would want to end up, I think is really important. You know, just packing your bags and crossing the border. This may not work out for you because you don't know where you're going and you haven't had a chance to experience it. For me, being in Mexico was the greatest time of my life. I felt so accepted and so loved, and I felt like the culture was in alignment with my personality type. But the fact of the matter is, the father of my children lives here in Texas, and so I have to keep one foot in Texas for now at all times. But if I had the freedom of choice, I would be there at least half of the year, every year, until I changed my mind about that. So go visit, go explore, have fun, and be aware that on websites like Airbnb, the prices are way more expensive than if you go talk to the locals. So if you're going to go, I recommend going for at least a month. Don't go for a week because you're just going to hit the tourist spots and you're going to leave. Like, go for at least a month. Get to know the grocery stores, get to know the community, and maybe get an Airbnb or a hotel for a week, but go ask around and find a little casita or house or condo to rent and stay in it and see if living there is something that really suits your personality and interests.
Yeah, every
think
time
that
I go for a month at a time. But go ahead, Dag. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that is excellent advice for if you're going to move anywhere, is go there, go to the grocery stores, you know, not just the touristy stuff, because, you know, you really got to get a feel for the place. And I'm sure you're moving to another country, obviously, way different experience than just moving from one part of the state to another. You know, Mexico, if you talk to, you know, let's say typical Americans, you know, you're talking about like moving there, you know, they have this like idea that the whole country is like this war-torn, you know, cartel, you know, violent, whatever. And the more that I talk to people who either visit or are from there or have moved there from the U.S. in, you know, search of more freedom, it just doesn't seem like that's the case at all. Are there like certain areas or something, or I mean, are these just completely unfounded concerns, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of all of the above. I think any country you go to is going to have bad areas, of course, right? I've seen a woman mugged in Brooklyn, New York. Like, this happens here, this happens there, it happens everywhere. Now, there are neighborhoods in Acapulco that you may not want to live in for one reason or another. The thing about Mexico is that the industry you work in really matters. Like, if you don't want to deal with the cartels, don't deal drugs. You know, like don't get involved with the activities that compete with them, and they are going to treat you with respect as well, because they know that you're there bringing resources to the community. I found that when I first got there, I was afraid, honestly, because of all the propaganda. But after spending the better part of a year living in Mexico, I quickly discovered that I was welcome, that the community was friendly, that I felt safe. I knew my neighbors, they knew me. And even if we couldn't have a full conversation in the same language, they would try. And very often we would have these conversations where they're speaking a little English and a little Spanish, and I'm speaking a little English and a little Spanish, and we're making it work. We're figuring it out. People really look out for you. When my kids were playing on the beach and the sun was setting and this high tide was coming in, some teenage kids came up and said, hey, you should move back from the water. The waves are about to start getting really big and it's not safe. They look out for you and they take care of you, and they help if you need help. And they're so friendly. I mean, it's just one of the kindest cultures that I have ever been exposed to. I felt that way in Italy as well. So yes, of course there's dangerous areas, of course. I mean, don't go hang out in them. In general, the tourist areas are going to be safe, but there's also residential areas that are not super touristy that are perfectly fine. I let my son walk a couple paces ahead of me. I didn't have this fear of him like being kidnapped and taken off, in the way I probably did in my first week there, where I like wouldn't let go of my children's hands, and I'm like, I wouldn't go outside after dark. But what I found is that Mexican culture, they're eating dinner at 10 p.m. Like you go to a restaurant at noon, nobody's there. Why? Because it's hot. The sun is out. People are at home chilling in their hammock, and they're eating lunch at 3 o'clock, and they're eating dinner at 10 p.m. and they've got grandma and toddlers and babies walking down the street at 10 o'clock. And so if you're afraid to be out when there's children and elderly out, that might be an unfounded fear. You feel me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
That's something that I noticed too. Like there weren't very many restaurants open like 10, 11, even
Yep.
noon there. So.
Yep.
But how, like, as an agorist or just anybody who wants to live there, how would one go about? Did you have any issues trying to, I don't know, like how you made money, or I don't know your finances or anything, but how would one go about trying to generate some kind of revenue? I mean, I know that there's less regulations and their marketplaces are great, but if you can give us some insight on that.
Yeah, I'll say this. I made my money online while I was there. My blog, The Homestead Guru, from Google and Amazon ads. And then, of course, at the time, Steam It was a big deal. That's moved on to the Hive network with Peaked. But I was blogging on Steam It, and I was making cryptocurrency. And I had some cryptocurrency that I lived off of for a while. And so this was kind of, I made some really good altcoin investments in late 2017. And so my 2018 was pretty easy for me. And my 2019 was a little bit less easy because I lived off of it, but I spent that time and energy to invest in myself and to invest in my business. I would say having a job that you can take online, becoming a digital nomad, is a really easy way to live abundantly in Mexico. If you have an income that would allow you to live a middle-class life in the United States or Europe, and you move to South America, you can live a much more luxurious lifestyle. And of course, for me, like when I say luxurious lifestyle, I mean, I'm taking yoga 4 days a week instead of 2, I'm not really a stuff person. So experiences for me, and condos were a lot cheaper, $500 a month for a 2-bedroom condo across the street from the beach in a gated community. You can't do that in the United States. You just can't. And so I would say digital nomad is really the way to go. You can also buy and sell things there in the community. I do know that certain industries are regulated either by the city or the cartels. So you don't want to get into taxi driving, for example, because that's a cartel regulated industry, at least in Acapulco. the beach is full of people who are selling wares, and you do need to have a permit to do that. And I believe the cartel regulates that industry as well. You got to give them your cut. So, just functioning with awareness. We did have some relationships with a couple storefronts where we were getting products that were made by Americans on the shelves in Acapulco. And so that was a little side income stream for us. And I was managing my blog and blogging from there and writing articles. I had at least one consulting gig while I was down there. So my income is decentralized, and where I live doesn't really matter because I can do all the things that I do from basically anywhere.
Yeah, as long as you have internet, right?
Exactly. That's the key. And I will tell you, AT&T Unlimited plan allows you to use your American service in Mexico or Canada. And that was fantastic. It was my only source of internet for 6 months in Mexico. In our condo, we did not have Wi-Fi. And I had no trouble working, tethering to my computer and watching movies or doing whatever I needed to do with my American AT&T plan. I now have Verizon that allegedly will let me use it in Mexico as well, but I haven't actually tested it out. So I don't want to put my name behind that as a 5-star review, but it's a maybe.
Yeah. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about, Catherine?
Yes, actually, I'm really excited to let people know that we have launched my Whole Life Detox class online. This is a workshop that I taught at Anarchapulco and Libertopia and just events all over the United States. And Lily has worked really hard at building an online store on the Homestead Guru. And we are trying to move away from Google and Amazon. Our goal is to be able to shut off the ads. And so we are trying to create educational content that can really help improve people's lives. So I have this course, it's called Whole Life Detox. It's a 6-part course, and it goes through your home, your finances, your emotions, your mental state, your relationships, and your body, of course, which is an important part of detox. And it's all about finding the places where we are imbalanced and bringing them back into balance. So decluttering the home and decluttering the mind, getting off of social media if you don't have a healthy relationship with it, even for a couple days, can do so much for your mental state. Meditation, yoga, these different things. And it's a video course that also has a workbook that's about 80 pages in it, and it gives you a 1-year path to create a whole new you. And this is a process I went through myself. I was bit by a brown recluse, and my body was so toxic that I very much so struggled to deal with the spider venom. And there was a couple-day period where I wasn't sure if I was going to survive the experience or not. And as I began to detox my body, I started to realize, wow, my relationships are so toxic. And wow, my emotional state is so toxic. I'm so angry. And wow, my mental state is so toxic. I am constantly looking at all this negative news and reading all this negative stuff. And so I took myself through this process of detoxing my entire life. And I feel like I have been fully reborn. And I feel really passionate about teaching people how to do this for themselves. So this is available online. It's $100, and it gets you lifetime access to the videos. You get the workbook. You get to join a private Telegram group. And this is a lower cost than offering it in person, because I know how valuable it is to have that, face-to-face experience. And in person, I also give out samples of different products, like my Magic Mud tooth powder and essential oils and, different things like that. So since I can't do that online, I did compile some coupon discount codes from different companies that I really like and support, and created this Telegram group that we can kind of chit chat, and you can have access to ask me questions and have dialogues and that sort of stuff. So that is something I wanted to mention because I'm very excited about it. And I want to give a shout out to Lily. Thank you for getting the store built on the Homestead Guru. If you click Bookstore at the top, you'll see we have all sorts of awesome ebooks, and we've got several more being written right now. So we would love your support in that way.
Yeah, these ebooks look really cool. Are these all, did you guys write these, or?
Yep, they were written by people on our team, every single one. I wrote the chicken ebook, and then some of them have different chapters written by different authors. Elizabeth, Crystal, Lily have all contributed to the different ebooks.
What are these? I'm sorry, this is weird. What are these blue things on the donuts on the recipe book?
Blueberries, I think.
They're really like light blue and they look big like grapes. Anyhow, I'm sorry. That's weird.
Yeah, I think they were blueberries. I actually designed the recipe book. I don't have very many recipes in there. Most of them are Lily and Elizabeth, but I actually designed that one, and I'm pretty sure it's blueberries.
Okay. But no, that's great. I think the idea of the course is really awesome, and I definitely feel like in my life a lot of times with things, you know, like just there is just so much like conflict, you know, especially when it comes to like social media, and we make excuses and stuff like, well, you know, I need this for work, or, you know, whatever. But, you know, when I make the mistake of like, you know, flipping open, you know, Facebook in the morning before I got to do my chores, and I see within 2 seconds, I see something stupid. And then somebody I disagree with. And then I'm out there and I'm doing my animals. I should be enjoying my morning. It's a beautiful day. I'm feeding the chickens and this and that. And I'm just sitting here going like how I would argue with this person when they said something that I don't agree with about economics, you know? And I'm just like, what am I doing? You know, like I should be enjoying this morning. I'm sitting here grinding my teeth. And yeah, I just think that it's something that probably all of us could stand to do.
Yeah, for sure. Especially at this time in human history, we are just inundated with negativity at every turn. And, you know, what I found over the course of the past 10 years is that my time as an activist, it was really a lot of projection. You know, 07, 08, it was, you need to give me my freedom. You need to stop oppressing me. You need to change your behavior. But as I started getting down to the lowest common denominator, and I moved from national politics to state politics to city politics to my family, and it was my ex, you know, it's your fault. You're angry. You're this. When I really got down to the lowest common denominator, which is what ayahuasca did for me in 2017, was hold this mirror right in front of my face and show me, hey, here's the tyrant. There's the tyrant. Look in the mirror. And when I was able to heal my inner tyrant, my inner anger, I suddenly stopped projecting it out onto the world. And suddenly it was okay for other people to be themselves. Suddenly it was okay for people to have opinions different than mine. Suddenly it was okay because I realized I've been free the entire time. I'm the one that was convinced I wasn't free. I'm the one that was telling myself I was a slave. I ain't no slave. I'm free, and I've been free the whole time. And finding that out was one of the greatest and most liberating discoveries of my entire life. The only thing keeping me enslaved is me. Whoa, that's a big deal. You know, when you find out that you are the one who's causing the turmoil and disruption in your life, and that you have the choice to let other people live how they want to live, then all of a sudden you become freedom in action. And I want to put a plug for a really great book. It's called Loving What Is by this woman, Byron Katie. And she has this process called the work. And she has you go through, and there's this particular worksheet called the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, right? Where it's like, okay, let's do it on the government. And you are controlling, the government is controlling, the government is oppressive, the government is blah, 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 blah. And then she leads you through this process of self-inquiry. And at the end, you flip it around and you realize, oh, wow, I'm the control freak. Right? I'm trying to control the government. I'm trying to control the other people. I'm trying to tell them how they should live instead of just living the way I want to live and being a beacon and a light for freedom. Because when you really start living with authenticity, you become that light. You don't have to tell anyone how to do anything. You don't have to argue with anyone about anything because they're coming to you and they're saying, how do I get to live like that? What do I have to do to have that level of happiness? How do I create that kind of joy in my life? And so if you can stop projecting out onto other people and trying to control the way other people think, feel, live, act, behave, that's liberation right freaking there.
You're amazing, and I could probably listen to you all day.
Thank
Dag
It's a
was
nice
there.
pick me up for sure.
you.
Right? Yeah, my mood's like all calm now. What? Dag, did you have any questions for?
No, man. No, this has been great. It's definitely like you said, man. I feel like I could go on for a while, but no, that was great. I guess I'll say on your last piece there that I really think that's one of the things that sort of, I don't know if I've realized it more as I've been more consider myself more of an agorist, or maybe just my journey here has sort of been like why I feel this way, but like yeah, I've just really come to realize that like so much stuff it's in your own hands, and yeah, there's plenty of stuff to be upset about, and yeah, I definitely have a great dislike for government and whatnot, but bitching about it and blaming them for problems only gets you so far. And at some point, it's like, well, what can I do to take my future into my own hands, and my happiness, my freedom. And, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I just, I'm picking up what you're putting down, and I really like it.
Right on. Yeah. The more that you are looking to other people to change their behavior in order for you to be free, the more authority you're giving them over your life. And this is applicable in interpersonal relationships, and it's applicable in governmental relationships. If people want to wear masks, and if people want to mandate that other people wear masks, why we got to be mad about it? I'm not wearing a mask, like I'm walking into stores and I'm just living my life. And it kind of blew my dad away, because like I just walk in like I own the place and people don't question me. And if they do, I say, oh, I got a medical exemption, and I keep walking and no one bothers me. I'm just living my life. You can wear a mask. I don't care. Oh, you want to tell everybody to wear a mask? That's funny. Okay, good luck. Moving on, right? And so it's like when we get mad at them and we say, you can't demand that, we're kind of giving them the authority to demand it, and we're letting them know that they have that power over us, right? And so just simply living as we want to live, and it doesn't mean you can't talk about it or you can't think about it or you can't whatever. I mean, emotions, they are our internal guidance system. They're there for a reason. But the more that we just start standing in our own authority, the more free we become.
Excellent.
Well, I don't want to use up all of your time, Catherine, but I really appreciate you coming on, and yeah, I'm really glad to have you on. So
yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if anyone wants to follow me on Instagram, it's at rewildchild, and on Float, I'm at Catherine. And then there's the Homestead Gurus on Float on Instagram, and www.thehomestead.guru. Join our mailing list, and you'll get stuff that you can't find anywhere else online.
yeah, join all those because I am. No, I mean, don't just follow me, but yeah, definitely check those out. And yeah, I'm gonna end it off with a quote here. People have only as much liberty as they have the intelligence to want and the courage to take. Emma Goldman. That's our show today. Agorist Nexus out.